Auburn is the hottest team in college football, and all of a sudden, they're a favorite to win their second national championship in 8 years. But first, they're going to have to beat a Georgia team looking for revenge in the SEC championship game on Saturday. We'll preview the big game and discuss the key players to keep an eye on as we go one-on-one with Brian Matthews, sports writer covering Auburn football for Rivals, on the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma. All right, it's December 1st, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning into the OFN Meeting Room as we talk Auburn football with Brian Matthews. Brian, thanks for taking your time to talk to us today with less than 24 hours to go for the big game.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just left the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, had a coach's press conference there, and then they had a little walkthrough when they arrived.
All right, so look, I'm going to ask you the first question that you know I'm going to ask you. It's what everybody wants to know that's paying attention to this game, and that is what is the status on Carryon Johnson?
Well, he's pretty banged up. He's been receiving treatments all week, basically held out of practice, and we'll just have to wait and see. I think it's going to be a game-time decision, maybe an hour before kickoff. They're going to see how he looks in warm-ups. I think he's going to try to go and not be surprised to see him start, but I'm not sure, how long he's going to be able to last or if he's going to be able to go at all. I think it's going to be really tough for him to really make a big impact on this game.
All right, if that's the case, then Auburn is looking at their third string running back in this game, of course, with Petway out, and that's what depth is all about, I guess, for championship teams. Sometimes you have to deal with it. And Cam Martin, who's a sophomore, has got a little over 400 yards rushing. And he played a little bit last year as well, had a little over 300 yards rushing, so hasn't played a whole lot, but he does have a higher average over Carryon Johnson and Cameron Petway. So what are we going to be dealing with if Cam Martin is the guy? Is he the guy that would be the workhorse?
Probably the next guy in, but I wouldn't call Cam Martin a workhorse either.
Okay.
Tough guy, speed guy, a guy you probably don't want to give the ball to more than 10 to 15 times in the game. So what they're going to do is use him, Malik Miller, who's a bigger, more physical guy, redshirt freshman, and Devin Barrett, the true freshman. I think they'll find different ways to use them if Carryon can't go. And I feel like that's going to be the first thing they try to do is see if Carryon can. But if you can't, it's definitely going to be a committee.
All right. So and really, I guess even if Johnson can't go and can't get as many carries as they would like. Fact is, as long as they can give him enough carries to spell Martin and vice versa, then that would really be kind of the best case scenario. And tell me about some of these other kids. I mean, because you never know in these big games. I mean, heck, we even saw a Super Bowl with the Washington Redskins where you go, well, who the heck is that? And he goes on and wins the MVP. So does Auburn have one of those guys?
Well, I think that's very possible. Malik Miller actually played with Carryon in high school. They were both played tailback together, and they both played on defense. And Malik's sort of a big bruiser type, more like a Cameron Petway type runner. But I think he is a guy that if he got rolling, he could handle 25 or 30 carries a game.
Okay.
And, the way Auburn's offensive line played against Georgia last time.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't rule out a guy, coming off the bench that you haven't really heard much of having one of those type games.
Well, that was the big difference in the first game. Obviously, was Auburn's offensive line against Georgia's defense, and vice versa. And I was talking with Dan Chonka before in the scouting section, and we were going over all the key players in the SEC championship game. That's already available on demand at ourlads.com, and we talked about that big difference about how Georgia, even back to the Mark Richt days, they just have not produced the top offensive lines. And we saw that in the Georgia game. And when you're coming up with those big games, your offensive line's got to come through, and it didn't come through for Georgia. Auburn's got some really talented offensive linemen, some prospects coming out in the NFL draft that we talked about, including Braden Smith and even Darius James and Austin Golson. So there's no smoke and mirrors there. That means that Georgia's going to have to do something. And they're going to have to do something that maybe we're not expecting them to do, because what Auburn did in that first game, that looks like something that could be repeated.
Yeah, I agree. They can't just show up and just try to run over Auburn. They don't have the personnel to do that up front. They got to find different ways to get the ball in the hands of a Nick Chubb and a Sonny Michel. Could see them maybe use more in the passing game, possibly. Maybe try to mix things up. I'm not an expert on their offense, but just trying to power run those guys against Auburn is not going to work. At least I don't think it will. That defensive line really dominated Georgia up front in the run game, holding them to 46 rushing yards, and then just being in Jake Fromm's face most of the game, sacking him 4 times.
What are you thinking about as far as the matchup psychologically for Auburn's sake? They were the team that beat up Georgia. They were they did win it at home. So now they got to go to a neutral site. A lot of people talking about that they had beaten them up a few weeks ago. Coach even admitted they beat them up. So what's the psychology of the team going into this one as the team that almost has to kind of I don't know if there's a pressure there to repeat that type of a performance, but it all depends. I mean, every team is different. How do you think this team's going to handle that?
Well, I do think Georgia may have a little bit of an emotional edge just because they were sort of embarrassed, 3 weeks ago in that game. And I'm sure they feel like they have a lot to prove and, feel like, the way they were beat down on the line of scrimmage, that sort of testing their manhood in a way. So, I think there's the edge there for them, but I'm not sure how long that's going to last and if that's enough to really carry them against a team that I think right now is just flat out better than them and playing better than them right now.
Why do you think? Was it a specific game or a philosophy? Did something happen to Stidham? Was it just needing enough reps, familiarity with the offense to kind of get him going? Because he's definitely been a much more calm, better quarterback than he was early on in the season. Even the LSU game where he didn't look good at all. So what's been the difference since they've been winning games since the LSU game?
I think there have been a few things that have helped Jarrett Stidham. I think he's gotten more comfortable within the system and just being a starting quarterback for a major college team. I think he just started 2 or 3 games at Baylor, so the experience factor has really helped him there.
Okay.
I think Auburn's receivers have gotten a lot better. They were having a lot of trouble getting open against teams like Clemson and LSU, and they've really improved over the course of the season. And now they're not only getting open, they're making some tough catches in traffic, winning 50-50 balls, and making some plays after the catch. So that's really helped. And I think Auburn's offensive line, they've had 5 or 6 different starting lineups, but I think they feel finally comfortable with the guys they have out there, and they're just doing a better job running the ball and protecting Jarrett.
Is there a specific receiver that sticks out that would be considered like a number one for Auburn?
Well, they've got a couple of guys. Brian Davis, he set an Auburn Iron Bowl record with 11 catches against Alabama last week. And he's now the single-season leader in catches for Auburn.
Okay.
And he's got 69 this season. And, I looked at him as more as just a possession guy, a guy that would catch a 3 or 4 yard pass and that would be all. But as a junior, he's become a guy with potential big play and catch that short pass and turn it up and make it into a 25, 30, 40 yard play. And then Darius Slaton, he was injured early in the season, and he's finally come back, and he's become that down-the-field threat that this offense really needs. He's got that big, strong arm and needs somebody that he can go through downfield that's going to make plays, and Darius has become that guy.
Yeah, because, obviously you look at the stats, as you said. Look, Davis has got 47 more receptions, and Slaton is Stove is the number 2 guy with 27. But still, the yardage, very similar. Davis, though, had the big game last week. But like you said, at least Davis is a little bit more to his game. So the big guy, Slaton, I know that Hastings also has a pretty big catch average. So is Slaton, though, the main guy that would really concern Georgia the most as far as big plays?
Yeah, as far as Christian Field, yes, but they'll find different ways. Nate Craig Myers can make big plays down the field. Well, Hastings is more of a guy, but catches those intermediate passes, has great quickness, and can beat his man and make some plays after the catch too. So they've got some guys now they trust and feel good about. I think 1 through 5 or 6, they feel pretty good about that receiving core now.
All right, and the defense is obviously playing fantastic. So when you take a look at this defense and compare it to some of the other really good Auburn defenses since, say, even the national championship season, what do you see? What's the difference? What is this defense better? Is this just defense as good but different in a way?
Yeah, this is the best defense Auburn's had since basically going back to 2004, 2005. good defense that Tuberville had back in the mid 2000s.
Okay.
And I think the biggest difference is up front. They've got some real studs on that defensive line: Jeff Holland, Derek Brown, Dontavius Russell, Marlon Davidson, all guys I think are going to be drafted within the next 2 years in the NFL, and all have careers there. They're just all good players. They get good depth. Guys like Nick Coe and Andrew Williams come in and can make plays. And then they've got a bunch of experience and talent in the back seven, too. You know, they got 4 linebackers they consider starters, and only 2 of them are on the field most of the time. And they've got about, 6 or 7 defensive backs they can rotate in there at safety and nickel and corner. And they feel really good about all those guys. Carlton Davis is probably the standout guy there at cornerback. Can take a guy one-on-one and sort of take him out of the game at times. And then they got 2 senior safeties, Trey Matthews and Stephen Roberts, who they really depend on back there to make plays, and they come up and make big plays, in the running game or short passing game too.
Yeah, you said on the last time we spoke to you that Carlton Davis was probably the best player on this defense, and when I talked to Dan Shonka earlier today, he thinks Carlton Davis could actually be a first-round draft pick when it's all said and done. Yeah. So, and what makes him so special though? What is his size? And anytime you have a cornerback with that size, that's always appealing.
Yeah, and Carlton does have great length for cornerback, and he's very competitive. I think he loves to play football and loves to compete against other wide receivers. You know, he's from the Miami area. He's got sort of that confidence, that swag those guys down there, have. And he's just been out there since he showed up at Auburn as a true freshman. He's been out there starting and playing against the best of the best in the SEC.
All right. So what's your gut tell you about this game tomorrow?
I think 41-21. I think Auburn has been on a roll, is going to keep on a roll against Georgia. No disrespect to the Bulldogs. I think just Auburn's just a better team at the line of scrimmage, and that's going to be the difference.
And you do realize how difficult it is, even though it's one step at a time. I was thinking about this a few weeks ago because when I picked Auburn to win before the old Alabama game, the national championship, I was going, yeah, but the one thing I'm concerned with, the thing I'm really, really struggling with is that they're going to have to beat Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, and then 2 teams in the playoffs. I don't know if any team has won that many games against that quality competition in such a short period of time to win the national championship.
I've never heard of any run like that. If Auburn could do that, that would be an amazing run. They're one of just a few teams that have won, that beat number 1 twice, 2 number 1s in the season, and they have a chance to play Clemson possibly in the playoffs, so that would be 3. But yeah, that would be an amazing run to see what they've done the last month of the season, in the SEC championship game, and then if they get in the playoffs.
Yeah, that could be something if they go up and get their chance at revenge themselves against Clemson in the playoffs. But it's looking like Oklahoma more than likely if everybody holds serve. And that includes Wisconsin winning, or even if Wisconsin doesn't, as long as the top 3 teams hold serve, it looks like we're going to see Auburn and Oklahoma. You would think that, or do you think there could be some still juggling?
No, I think that. I don't think Auburn can pass Clemson if Clemson wins. I think it would be Auburn, Oklahoma, and Pasadena, and Clemson versus whoever's number 4 in New Orleans. And, of course, that would be a rematch for Auburn and Oklahoma, who played each other in the Sugar Bowl last January 2nd.
Yeah. That's right. And on that end, that was an Oklahoma win. So, hey, if Auburn plays Oklahoma and Clemson, maybe they get revenge twice.
That's right. I know they'd love to do that.
All right. Awesome. Brian, I appreciate it. Enjoy the game tomorrow. And we look forward to talking to you next time, especially if it winds up being a playoff game.
All right. I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Again, that is Brian Matthews covering Auburn for Rivals. And always does a great job, and it should be a great game. The SEC Championship coming up soon. The Pac-12 Championship, by the way, if you're listening live, is only a couple hours away. So I'm already starting to get can I start to get excited, please? I've been doing interviews all week. The last couple of days, every hour I've been doing an interview. So I hope I get the opportunity it finally sinks in. And I could start thinking about these games. But look, I've been already thinking about these games all week. As I said, I like Auburn to win a national championship. I picked them over Oklahoma, but it looks like they're going to have to play Oklahoma. So we'll see. I'll leave that prediction for later on. Let's just stick to the games here today. Tomorrow. I do like Auburn over Georgia. No question, though, the Carryon Johnson situation could be a major, major factor. Okay, so once again, thanks Brian Matthews for joining us here on the program, and thank all of our guests that joined us this week. For the network, we'll see you on Sunday morning for fantasy football, and for this particular show, we'll see you on Monday at 2 o'clock with Mitch Light from Athlon as we recap the playoff, or we recap the bowl game, the championship games, and we preview the potential playoff games. And all the other bowl games here on the Ourlads Football Radio Network, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft.